Hey, okay, so, to that update that I said I was gonna have. God, this is weird. So, um, I'll show you what's up with build at the moment. But yeah, this was like most of the day I was trying to get one simple thing done, and then a bunch of complicated stuff just kind of happened automatically. So what I changed was, bam. So that's very placeholder at the moment, but I'll deconstruct a little bit of what's going on. So, one issue that we have is that players they don't understand when they have a valid combo, so they don't know what a valid combo is. So you need three elements of in a row basically, but some people think you can do that because you can go sideways like this. If I would ordinarily say yeah, it has to be in a whole line, but we played with that. It's just not fun, really. Um, there's a lot more. There's just enough possibilities with this kind of sideways thing. So the first thing that happens is that when you have that combo, when it goes in, then if you watch, these two tiles are going to collapse into this one, and that's awesome. I think maybe just because I finally got it to work. And another thing that happens that you probably noticed is that there's this big vignette, and um, it's that color is kind of placeholder at the moment. It may be more intense, it may be less intense, and the gradient may change. But those are the main things that happened. So we'll talk about what happened. So I was a little fortunate in that the tile slidings was actually a previous. We had that before. As like instead of converting right now, there's like if you convert plant over water, like vines will grow in the water. But right now, but what we used to have for a while was that when you converted a plant onto the water, you'd literally see the plant tile slide onto the water tile. It was an animation I was quite proud of, and it's we ended up getting rid of it, but I kept the code around, and I'm glad I did because it was perfect for this. So tiles, they have a function called setPath, which is important. And it's just basically a vector or an array of coordinates that the tile's going to go towards. So honestly, this isn't really relevant right now. What it used to be is because like I have to follow the path in your finger before it would kind of go around corners, but basically this is just where you're going. And starting position, I don't even think is relevant anymore. This is actually making me realize I need to go back and clear out all the features that aren't relevant anymore. But the main thing that this happens is that in our enter frame event, there's a bit here. So if we have a path, then there's this, which looks like a lot of complicated math, but basically every time you see this, it's basically just saying add your slide speed to your X, and then when you get close enough that you're already there, then just move there. Or subtract it, depending on which side you're on, really. And then this is the same thing, but vertically. And when we're at the final position, then we just gotta get rid of the path. I don't know what this is, apart from a Sonic reference, though. I think it's... Oh, yeah, it's that if you're not at the final position, then it just speeds up the sliding. So the sliding is faster and faster the further along it goes. I'm pretty sure that means. Although I can always appreciate a good Sonic reference. This is not relevant, but this is. So, activated is a Boolean variable, which is turned on when a bloody... So when you get a valid combo, the tiles light up, and we had that for a while. But that also should be when these tiles are collapsing in on each other. So basically, if we aren't... Oh, no, I know what this is. So this is... What this is all the code that makes tiles fall. So when you, like... I'm not going to show you it, but when you make a combo, all the tiles above it will fall down, because it's being deleted, like in Candy Crush or Bejeweled or whatever. And now we only want to do that if we're not activated, because otherwise these tiles are going to slide up and they're going to fall back down, which looks kind of comical. But not what we want. And that's the main thing, really. That's all there is. There's probably a few other scraps of code. There's stuff like when to activate it. So yeah, in this activate selection thing, this is all the code that's needed to run it. So this is essentially because we need to pass into the set path this vector of vectors. This might get complicated, but we need to pass in this vector of vectors, and we push our first element, which is because we only have one. And again, this is why I should probably go through and change things a bit. Is this is the coordinate for our first point? It just looks at vCombine tiles, which is a again vector which stores all of the tiles we've currently selected, and the last one will always be, you know, that length minus 1, because we're always adding it to the end of the vector. So that's the last tile that we touched, and the one that's going to be next to the monster if we need it. We just look at that sprite's x and y value, and then pass that into here. So what's interesting about this is that it doesn't actually slide, like, it slides the tile, but really it's only sliding the sprite. The tile itself is still where it always was. Actually, well, it should be. It's not at the moment, but that's not important. Don't pay attention. But that's pretty much all that is. And then there's the vignette. What's this little guy? So the vignette was a pain in my neck. Because what we first tried was that we had, I don't think I have it anymore, but we had like these images where it had like a hole cut out of it, so it would be darkness and then a hole in the center. But in order to make that viable, we would basically have to have the image be a width and height that was double our screen size, which was stupid, and we knew it was stupid, but it was kind of easy. And I put up with it for like 30 minutes before I was like, no, this is stupid. We gotta redo it, like a proper way. And proper way would be procedurally, I should say. So vignette is a sprite, an ActionScript sprite, which is just a display object, and we don't need this line anymore. This is going to be a lot of me cutting things out like dead pieces of flesh, because what I initially tried was I wanted to make the whole thing a black square and then mask out the center. And I think at this stage I wasn't fully aware of gradients. Like, I don't know, I've always had a pain with getting gradients to work. And don't get me wrong, the gradients are still a pain, but we'll get to that later. So I was trying to make a mask and making a circle with it and then moving that circle around. But it wouldn't work for some reason. Like, it would just cut off the bottom half of the actual this vignette circle, which is pretty much, you could just say, the black bit. And I had theories as to why, but couldn't get to the bottom of it. So we're deleting all this, because if I ever see it again, then I'll make it regret it was ever coded. So this is a bitmap, which in ActionScript means that I need bitmap data to start with. Gitboard dimensions is just the size of the playing field, not anything else, although it probably wouldn't matter if it was anything else. And that's the default value for this. I don't even know what it is. It's whether it has transparency, which it obviously does. And this is the color that it starts with, which is irrelevant, so I really can just do this. I don't know, I'm not going to mess with it, because I don't want to break it and then have to fix it in the middle. So that's really not where the magic happens. The magic happens here. Again, more dead flesh code. This was essentially every frame I'd be redrawing the whole darkened square and then redrawing the mask. I'm just gonna I'm not going to talk about it anymore, because otherwise I'll start throwing things around the room. So essentially what this does is that what we're using instead is a gradient. So we need to get rid of the previous gradient that we have, which is not unusual, but it sounds like it'd be a lot of work. And then so this is where it kind of gets difficult for me to explain, which is bad because it's my job, and I sort of just did this, so I will get back to you when I understand it more. But you can kind of think of it as we specify a point with this where the gradient starts, and then we define what that gradient is there, and then we draw the whole shape that the gradient's going into. So even though a vignette is a circle, what we're essentially drawing is a rectangle with a transparent gradient in the middle of it. So in this case, the rectangle goes over the entire board. That's the easy part. Our begin gradient fill, it's like a normal begin fill. It just defines what's going inside of this draw rectangle. And we define things like it's a radial function, which is it's a circle. These square brackets, if you don't know already, they're for arrays. So this is the colors that we're going to have in it. Get color by selection is not an exciting function at all. It just basically looks at the element of our current selection and then returns the color of it. This and these go from yeah, like the last value will be closer to the center, is all. This is for the alpha, so no, it's the opposite. The first value is closest to the center. So the alpha for here is important because they're both going to be whatever color it is, but alpha is what matters because that's what we can, see through. So just for this is that, closer to the center, it's going to be 0. And then this is like the spread of the alpha. I'll show you what I mean just because it'll be difficult to explain. But if I change that to 0, it's gonna the barrier between the gradient is gonna be a lot fuzzier, and that's not really useful. Like it kind of goes all the way pretty much out to the whole thing, to be honest. Which is fine, I guess, but I wanted this to be a bit more constrained. Now, one thing I'm a little upset with is that I don't exactly know how to make the gradient line fuzzy, but maybe I should get to that a bit later, because I haven't explained this. So, a gradient box, as it was described to me online, is a box that the gradient goes into. I don't even want to think of it as that, because that'll get confusing. I think maybe an explanation later, but you essentially design the width and height of that box, which I want to be over the entire board. Then whatever this thing is the rotation, which only really matters for linear gradients, which is which direction it'll go towards. The tx and the ty is the translation, and the complicated part is that this is related somehow to the width and height of the gradient. So it would be like, I don't know, because it is the width and height of it right now, it translates pretty well. Basically, I touch X and I touch Y is this, which is just basically where the mouse is on the screen, as you might imagine. And then you subtract half of the board, because when you make this gradient box, the gradient always starts in the center. Because that's how radial works. Linear would work differently. In order to get rid of that, basically you can think of it this starting as an X value of half get board dimensions anyways, because we want to cancel that out. We subtract it from I touch X and I touch Y. And that's all that's here. I had a thought as I was going through it that the fuzziness of the gradient is probably defined by this, because this would set the edges of the box, the gradient box, I think would essentially be the second value here, the 1, and then the center would be the 0. So if I wanted it to be smaller and less fuzzy, I believe what I need to do is shrink that. You know what? Let's just... I'm doing it for the thrill. And then building. So if I divide that by 2, then I imagine will it still fall? See, no. Yeah, I had a feeling this would happen, but it's not following my mouse. The effect is there. It is doing what I want it to. It's just not doing what I want it to. There's probably something where I could double some value in this and it would compensate, but I can't just double I touch X or Y because this already is accounting for the fact that the board is a little low, whereas I touch X does not. More or less. Anyways, oh, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. I'm not going to get into it now, because this is getting to be not a long video, but who knows. So that's all I really worked on. There's a few things that I did, mostly bug fixes that are difficult to show, and I won't waste your time with that. So otherwise, I'll talk to you again later when I figure out this gradient thing a bit more. We're definitely going to adjust what's here now, because it does look kind of ugly. And when I do, then that's probably going to require me to understand all this bullcrap. So yeah, until then, I'll see you later. I should make an outro catchphrase. That'll be a good idea.